this meeting to order. To begin the meeting, I'm going to ask Mrs. Skoma if she'll open with a prayer for guidance, please.
Shall I pray? Lord, we thank you for the blessings that you've given us in this day. We thank you for the beautiful weather and the promise of spring and of life. We thank, Lord, of the people in Nepal who have lost so many lives, who are suffering from the devastation. We pray that you'll meet their needs and that you'll give them what they stand in need of. Pray, Lord, too, for our township, for our citizens. We pray, Lord, for our staff. We pray for our police and our firefighters and those who respond to our disasters. We pray, Lord, for the board tonight as they conduct the meeting. We pray that you will give us wisdom for the decisions that we have to make. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you rise and join me for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show that all board members are present with the exception of Mr. Waringa, who has notified us of his absence. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Moved.
Mr. Schwam's absent too.
Oh, yeah. Gee.
He doesn't have any.
Surprising that I didn't notice that. I thought it was kind of quiet.
I think he's attending.
You'll
have to go out and get him.
If you'll make a note, and if he does come. There is a motion on the table to approve the agenda. Support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is carried. At this time, we're going to have invite Chief Hamming to come and make a fire department presentation.
Township manager asked if I would do a little short, I guess, state of the fire department would be the best way to put it. So, got about 39 slides, and when I get done, I'll open it up for any questions. 2014 stats, you see we responded to 615 alarms. Fire-related, this is anything from car fires to structure fires to oven fires. I was at 64. Rescue and EMS, that's pin-in accidents, PI accidents, anything medical-related. Water dive rescue, I mean, 6 hazardous conditions is our spill cleanups at accident scenes, any hazard incidents that we may respond to. False alarm is usually one of the biggest or second to the biggest that we run a fair amount of false alarms within Georgetown, but severe weather is 8. In 2014, we didn't have any serious injuries to our personnel, which is a good thing. Most of what we occur is pinch fingers or getting some drywall on the helmet, this type thing, but no serious injuries where any of our personnel were laid up or missed any of their full-time employment. Responses, we run to a various gamut of responses, obviously structure fires. Last year, I think we had 2 structure fires. It was a very slow year last year. But this year, just jumping into 2015, since January 1, we've already responded to 6, what I call working structure fires, as you see in the picture there. Plane crash at Riverview Airport. Pilot came in too low and brushed his wing on the ground, flipped the plane, and he was not injured. So it doesn't happen very often, but periodically we do run to the airport. Vehicle extrications, as in the first pick, that we do run a fair amount of auto accidents. This one's kind of a special one, is Miss Skolma's niece that we cut out of the car on 44th Street in Regal. Lost it on the ice and was hit by another car. I think from the last I heard, she is doing very well, and took a lot to get her out, but the guys did a bang-up job. Another rollover accident. This was on 28th and Baldwin, where the one of the vehicles ran the stop sign. There's the red light, and this pickup T-boned that car. Ultimately flipped over on its side. Fire personnel had to remove the whole roof to get him out. He did not have any real serious injuries, and so that's a good thing. This high pressure airbags that we have on our squad. We've got high pressure airbags, and then we have cushions, which you'll see in a minute. These work very well in place of our extrication tools. Those have the tendency of, once you start lifting, they can twist, whereas an airbag, you can see it puts a pretty good span over the lifting area. So these are what we call our low pressure cushions. Do the same thing, but are a little bit bigger in size. We've got 2 of these that you can stack on top of each other, which will give you a little added lift if you need it. Water rescue, obviously, is a big part of our organization within Georgetown with all the bodies of water we have. This here is one of the rain events that we had a year or 2 ago. This was 44th and Kenowa when it flooded out. Several of the occupants that lived in Brook Meadow Apartments needed to be taken to higher ground. So, fire prevention is always a big part of what we do throughout the year. Obviously, Fire Prevention Week is designated the first week of October. During that week, I think we have 3 apparatus on the road all day long, visiting all the schools within the Jenison and Hudsonville district, from DK, I believe, to 3rd or 4th grade. And last year, I think we visited just under 2,000 kids. So between Jenison and Hudsonville, that keeps us busy. Neighborhood block parties, the guys are always looking forward to going out doing neighborhood block parties to meet the residents, and this occurs quite a bit. So every other week, I think we get calls to do block parties. Department trainings is continuous for us. Anytime we can get our hands on a dwelling like we were able to get down at 200 Baldwin and right on Chicago Drive in Maine, these are the type of structures we look for. We can basically run our operations as if we're running a real life event. So again, anytime we can get these buildings, we take advantage of it. Combined training with Granville at 200 Baldwin. This is at the Jenison Baptist Temple. Multiple departments, not only Georgetown, Granville, but took advantage of this building. As I mentioned, to get a church like that to be able to conduct trainings is almost unheard of. So again, anytime we can get buildings like that, we take advantage of it. The parsonage at 200 Baldwin, this is where we get into a lot of our live fire trainings, where we'll set up some cribbing or wood pallets in the corners. This is really beneficial to our newer guys per se, guys that are on probation, and the veteran guys also get into this. You get into fire suppression, ventilation, overhaul, and then accountability. So these are very good trainings. This was a training we did back in Station 3 where we got our hands on a bus. And the scenario was our mannequin is inside that car, and the guys had to get that bus up off the car and get the mannequin out. And that's where those airbags and the cushions come into play. So. Hose testing, this is one of our August and September activities where the stations go out over a period of a week and we test every piece of fire hose we have. If you look at that hose right there, that is off that engine way in the far distance there. That engine carries a mile of 5-inch supply line. And all that has to be tested. Now, if you take all of our apparatus, we've got 12,000 feet of 5-inch supply line. We do not incorporate a tanker or a tender like Blunden has or Allendale. Any structure within Georgetown, we can lay a supply line to it if we need to. So What we do then is we put a pumper in the middle, probably about every 1,000 to 1,500 feet, and we relay it to the fire scene. Communications we get from Ottawa County Central Dispatch. They are located at 120th and Stanton in West Olive. This is a state-of-the-art facility which was constructed probably 5 to 10 years ago, where they moved from Grand Haven to here. Our local communications in the fire department, we've got 2 repeater systems, one on the 44th Avenue Water Tower, or 44th Street Water Tower, which is our main communications channel, or our fire ground channel. A lot of departments in Ottawa County don't have the radio communications that we have, which in our operations work very well. The second repeater is on the Bauer Road Water Tower, which we call our west repeater. If we get into obviously the areas on the east side of the township, we will operate on the east side, and if we go west up towards the college, we'll switch to the west repeater for better communication. So we do also have a bunch of fire ground frequencies that we can go to that are just radio to radio. These are more of a radio to the tower, back to the radio. So. We've got an emergency operations center, or what we call an EOC, in the basement of this building. Again, we got all our mobile radios in there in the event of a storm situation. Myself and a couple of the officers can go down there, and if Central Dispatch is overwhelmed with the radio traffic that they have, we can single them out, take all of our radio traffic and dispatch it on our own frequencies, which really frees them up. Also downstairs, our warning sirens can be activated from down there. There's 3 locations where they can be activated. Downstairs here, Ottawa County Central Dispatch, and then at the Ottawa County Emergency Management. Fire stations, we have 3. Station 1 is at 14th and 44th Street. Station 2 is on Church Street, east of Myers. Station 3 is on 36th Avenue, south of Baldwin. That's our, come on in, John.
Thought I was early, sorry.
That's engine 823 is one of our 3 frontline engines that we have. Each station has a frontline and a backup. Frontline engines carry all of our vehicle extrication. All of them are licensed by the state of Michigan to respond to medicals or PIs. And again, we have 7 of them. We basically, as I mentioned before, we run as a backup to our E-unit program, which works very well. There's times they've got 2 to 3 E-units on the road, and if they get overwhelmed with a medical or a PI, then it automatically gets turned over to fire. That's our truck 841. That's our 100-foot platform located at Station 1 on 44th Street. It works very well on our higher dwellings, the 2nd, 3rd story dwellings. So right now we have just that platform. And down into the program a little bit, one of the visions of that truck is to figure out in a few years what we're going to do, if we're going to refurb it or if we're going to replace it. So, Squad 832 is our support truck. As you see, it's got a mobile air unit in the back with a light tower that comes out the top. 2 windows there on the side there in the red paint is our command area. If we get into a large-scale event, the officer staff can go sit in there. They've got all our hazmat books or any other building information that we need to look at to mitigate the situation. The airbags and then also the cushions are carried on here, and also serves as our department canteen for the guys, whether it be coffee, hot chocolate in the winter, or cold beverages in the summer. Fire department personnel, obviously we've got a fire chief who's full-time, a deputy fire chief, assistant fire chief, 3 captains, 1 at each station, 3 lieutenants, 1 at each station. 16 firefighters per station, and then, like I said, 3 full-time personnel, the fire chief, fire inspector, and then a maintenance firefighter. What does the future look like for Georgetown Fire? 2017, it's in the plan to replace the chief's truck. The old vehicle will be moved to Station 3 as a medical unit. 2020, a new fire engine for Station 3, and then 21, a new fire engine for Station 1. As I mentioned, 2021, we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with the aerial platform. Also, we're going to closely monitor the building boom within Georgetown. Obviously, a lot of the building is going to happen in the northwest quadrant of Georgetown towards the college and then south towards Bauer Road. So in the event that continues to explode, we may have to pursue possibly putting a 4th station out in that area. And my goal has been from the start to continue with a paid on-call staff for as long as we can. The dive team, we have 13 divers right now, 10 support staff, obviously do surface, subsurface, also get into ice and swift water rescue. We have 90 bodies of water, so the dive team really comes in handy. 10 allow personal watercraft, and we have a good share of the Grand River, which periodically we get on. This is our new dive trailer that was delivered last Friday, so we're in the process of outfitting the inside there with some lockers and transferring everything over. Hopefully we'll have that done in the next month. Currently, the 21 fire departments in Ottawa County are having discussions about adding divers within their respective departments. In the past, the only really dive teams around are the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department dive team and then also the Georgetown Fire Department dive team. In doing this, this is going to hopefully spread out divers all around the county, which would not only benefit both quadrants. Take Holland, they have to wait for Ottawa County Sheriff's Department to get out there, but if they can have their own divers within their own departments, they can get the dive process going while the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department responds out there. Be laid into 4 quadrants, obviously the northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast. Georgetown has always been a part of the southeast quadrant. That's our jet boat that we use for river operations and also some of the inland lakes that have a boat launch. Works very well. It'll come into work in comparison with the new inflatable boat that we have on order, which should be here in another week or two. So with both boats, it should work very well. Ice rescue, as I mentioned, is another one of our operations, and wintertime, obviously, we conduct our trainings along with the ice rescue, and then also the subsurface divers that'll cut a hole and go through the ice, underneath the ice. So 12 warning sirens located throughout Georgetown Township. As I mentioned, 3 areas can set the sirens off, and one addition that's recently happened is out at Grand Valley College, right on the corner of 42nd and Pierce, which is in Georgetown, which is going to help us out into the northwest with a warning siren out there. But other than that, we got pretty good coverage throughout the township. This is just a small 2/3, I guess, of our department right there. After one of our training nights, they got together for a group picture, but like I said, there's 1/3 of the guys that aren't on here yet, if that gives you an idea of how many personnel we have. Again, thank you for your support, and I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Board?
I don't have any questions, but just for myself, and I'm sure for the residents of Georgetown Township, thank you to you and the firefighters and the department for the fine work that you do. And I think we have a fire department that's second to none in Ottawa County. And so we appreciate all those who give of their time to serve us and protect us and for our safety, so thank you very much.
Chief, maybe a question about the availability of your personnel. I know different times, you know, some years you have new guys come on, and other years, you know, you just have guys that want to stick around and keep being firefighters, I guess. Could you comment a little bit on some of the experience and where you're at, and do you have enough firefighters, or is that something where you continually are looking for more?
You know, right now, I think we've got, total, we've got 54 personnel. Since last year, we put, there's 3 guys that are in the academy right now getting trained, but we have a fair amount of guys that are what they call veterans, that have been around a while. We've got guys all the way from 41 years all the way down to the newer guys that are just in a year. So we don't get a big turnover of personnel, which is a good thing for us, but I tell some of the guys that put in an application, it's a bad thing for you. And we always have applications in the drawer.
Good.
And it's one of those kind of deals, I wish I could put more guys on, but to me, at that point, we get top heavy, and so it's just basically got to wait for an opening to occur at a station that you're closest to, wherever you live. So we're always been very blessed of being able to get personnel. I know a lot of departments around Ottawa County, they can't say that. We always have an adequate number of personnel. We have, during the daytime, we can get adequate personnel for structure fires. So again, we've been very blessed.
Chief, the airbags that you were talking about, are those filled with, do you have a compressor on board, or are they with compressor air tanks?
Well, what we fill those off is we got the smaller SCBA bottles, and I'm talking the air packs that the firefighters wear to go into a structure. You fill them right off one of those.
Okay. And then, out of curiosity, how did you get the bus on top of the car?
Took 2 wreckers to do that.
Oh, okay.
Sounds better than 2 tries with a hard wheel.
Yeah.
That was a well worthwhile training. John, you remember that one?
Yes, it was well done.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much. We do have an excellent fire department. Appreciate that. Okay, next is the communications, letters, and reports. These are to be received for information and filed. Does anyone have any comments or questions about those? Seeing none, we'll go to the public comment portion of the meeting. You're welcome to come and address the board, anyone. Please state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes to address the board. We are now open. Hello, John.
Hello. John Cade, 7869 Parkside Court. I have a comment to make about something that's on the consent agenda, which is the sign for the office and library. I see the cost of the actual sign without the LED is approximately $14,000, and then we triple that to add the LED, bring it up to about $41,000. My question for the board is, who has requested the LED? I've been to some of these meetings, people have talked against it. I've never heard anyone talk in favor of it, but maybe you people have. Also, what type of message would you plan to put on the LED sign? But my main thing is, who has requested it? The other thing is regarding consistency. The sign at the cemetery, which obviously is much smaller, but it says cemetery, and underneath it, it says Georgetown Township. I believe the proposed sign is the opposite, where it says Georgetown Township, and underneath that, office and library. I would think if we're going to do signs, we should have consistency on them instead of the wording being upside down in some of them, or in the reverse order. Thank you.
Thank you, John. See me afterwards, okay?
Michael Bosch, 896 Fairwood Court. Let's see. First off, 200 Chicago Drive. We're coming up on our year anniversary of that brilliant investment. So we got $3 million invested. KFC, we're giving it to them for a whopping $415,000. Payless is for sale at $500. We'll probably end up selling it for $400 if we're lucky, if and when. So that leaves us with $2,185,000. But we also have to keep in mind we spent $165,000 of our taxpayer money tearing down the building. So that brings us back up to $2.3 million, $2,350,000. We have a current offer of $740,000. I guess the appraisal came in at $840,000. It's not looking good. That's a $1,610,000 loss. That's a hit right there. And then also on top of that, the cherry on top is the $62,000 a year that Kmart was paying us in property taxes, which now gone, and every year, not going to get it. So as we were coming up on that 1-year anniversary, I just wanted to remember what a great investment that was. Also, the discussion of reopening up and reconsidering disallowing that waiver for the sidewalk on 44th Street. I think if anybody took a site visit out to that spot and looked at it, common sense would dictate that the waiver was the right choice. Second thoughts is not a good idea. And my main concern is we already have a walking trail, bike path right across the street. So if we were to force the new owner to put in a sidewalk, it's going to dead end into Glen Eagle. So my main concern, I guess, would be people who are heading west on the current trail, which is south of 44th Street, would just shoot straight across 8th Avenue, thinking they're going to take the sidewalk. Then it suddenly dead ends. So now we got people stuck there. We're going to try to cross the street, a busy street. So it just makes sense to keep it. It already crosses right there at the corner of 44th and 8th. They hit the north side on the walking trail, and they go across. I think the only people that are going to benefit from that are the Glen Eagle people. And if they want a sidewalk bad enough, let's make that waiver conditional upon once Glen Eagle homeowners decide to pay for a sidewalk that runs on their side, then they can connect to his, and it'll be continuous from 14th Avenue to 8th Avenue. But I think common sense is going to sort that one out. No sense forcing him to do a sidewalk to nowhere. And I think that's it for this portion. Thank you.
Hello. Jacqueline Larkin, 8294 Cottonwood Drive. I just have a couple of short comments today. The first one is on the new proposed township sign. I don't know how you justify spending a whopping $42,000 on a sign that can't even be seen by cars coming from the west or headed west. You can't see that sign coming from that direction until you're right on top of it. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. When you drive up to it, you can't see it till you get to the driveway. So basically, everybody that's going to be coming from that direction aren't even going to be able to see your sign. So I find your decision on this, spending this much money on the sign really disappointing. I really don't understand it. My second comment is on town halls. I'm wondering when these are finally going to start. You guys keep bantering it around that you might do it, might not. And we'd really like to see some town halls so we can get some dialogue going with all of you. And we can ask you questions and you can answer us and you can make sure you clear up any misconceptions that we have. And I'd also like to make sure that those town halls have WCET here so that anybody who can't attend can see everything that's going on. And my last comment would be I would like my public comments to be entered in the minutes. I'm giving a copy to Manette, and I'd like to see that happen for once. Thank you.
Hello, Edward Sosa, 7927 Kinmont Court. I'd like to bring up the topic again about your discussions about keeping the community informed. And I'd just like to tell you that if you truly want to be transparent and you don't want to run the township like a democracy, and you truly want to keep the community informed of what's going on, your actions need to speak louder than your words. First of all, I think you need to add more meat to your committee, workshop, and board minutes, and state why a particular decision has been made and what goal it's linked to. And let's not just do the minimal on the minutes that's required by the Open Meetings Act. Secondly, encourage the advance, WCET and other forms of media to film any meetings that take place in the township. And the third is to create a newsletter. And it doesn't matter that you've done a study in the past to create a newsletter, but let's work as a team and encourage the community buy-in, allow the community members in regards to what topics are going to be included in the newsletter. We need a hard copy newsletter for the older, more seasoned members of our community. I love the idea that somebody suggested about putting a hard copy in the tax notice envelopes. But then the topic of cost comes up. But let's face it, the board has spent lots of money on lots of other things. Let's spend some money on keeping the community informed, and it's in your best interest to do that. You can also create a PDF copy of the newsletter and put it in the your new website and post it on Facebook, and that way community members who are members or friends of your page, it'll appear automatically on their news feed. Let's work as a team. The Facebook pages, Reinvent Georgetown Township and The Love of Georgetown Township combined, have over 2,500 members in it. The superintendent could become a member of those two pages and post a newsletter on both of those pages, and that would be a good way for the superintendent to keep the finger on the pulse of what the community is saying about the board and the township as a whole. Let's not work in silos. We can collect emails from community members and email the newsletter to those who are not on Facebook. It's the year 2014. We need to get more sophisticated. In short, allow community members to access information in regards to what the board is doing and why in a user-friendly way. In closing, I just wanted to talk about one topic about the $19 million failed proposal. It was my understanding that the board increased our tax mills prior to the vote for the failed $19 million proposal due to anticipated costs to maintain the complex. Now that that's failed, are you giving that tax money back to the taxpayers? If not, why not? Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close this portion of the meeting, and there will be another opportunity at the end of the board meeting for public comment. Next is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved. Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any board member that wishes to pull anything off from the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is carried. Next is the zoning ordinance amendment. This is ordinance 2015-05. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution for ordinance 2015-03.
So moved.
Support.
It's moved and supported. Any comments or questions?
I guess maybe just a question of clarification. It looked like most of these amendments were relating to establishing or clarifying new structure as far as timelines and documents to be submitted for the request, but was there anything more substantial than that?
The main purpose is to allow certain simple site plans to be approved administratively instead of going through the 2-month process.
So it really is designed to streamline the process for those people coming in so they don't have to wait 2 months.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, the motion is on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is carried.
You need a roll call for that, being a resolution or not?
Is that a roll call?
Yeah, it's a resolution.
Okay, would you call the roll?
Mr. Valerius. Yes. Mrs. Skolma?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mr. Schwam?
Yes.
You also received in your packet the proposed 2015 Georgetown Township subdivision resurfacing program estimates. I'll entertain a motion to approve the subdivision estimates.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments?
There are a couple that I had asked if board members had an opportunity to check out 18th Avenue south of Chicago Drive and to Port Sheldon, also Lamplight north of Baldwin to Wagon Wheel. And I don't know what the process would be, but if it's possible, Mr. Chairman, I would amend by adding those two to this resurfacing.
It's, the motion is to amend this motion to add, repeat that please.
18th Avenue south of Chicago Drive to Port Sheldon, and then Lamplight north of Baldwin to Wagon Wheel.
I'll support that amendment. Questions?
Just a question, if we have any kind of estimate of the revised cost associated with that?
Oh, you can maybe get a little bit, I think you're familiar with it, you can get a little bit of an idea by looking at the costs already on the, from the county as far as the length in feet.
And I guess maybe just a question of process of if that cost will come back to us in the future, that we'll have to approve it at that time, or if by adding it to this list, it will just be included in the project.
Well, at this point, adding to the list will include it, but you could do it either way, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
I could
So-
come back with the numbers, or you could.
Well, and so another question is, I've driven Lamplight, and I agree. 18th, is that designated as a primary road, and would that come out of a separate fund in the future, or is that one of those, because it's such a little?
I'd have to ask the road commission what the plan is for 18th. We just got this, and I haven't contacted them about the request for that and what their plan is, but I could find that information out prior to agreeing to do it.
Okay.
Would it be acceptable to the mover that if 18th is a primary road and the responsibility of the county to drop that from the motion?
If the county is inclined to do something with it, yes, I would have no problem with that. My concern about all of these, frankly, is quality. First of all, quality roads for all of our residents throughout the township, and then again the idea of consistency and a consistent pattern of resurfacing. And I'm sure there are folks here who would tell us that they know of roads that should be added as well. But in response to your question, yes, that would be fine.
If you include that in the amendment, that if the county, if it is a primary road, 18th, that will not be a part of this amended motion. Excuse me. Anything else on the amendment? If not, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is carried. I also would like to, you got a printout or an application. I went and looked at all these roads, and for the previous 2 years, the treasurer and I looked at all the past roads, and it was very, very puzzling as to how the county determines this road needs to be done and this one doesn't. A perfect example is one that was added last year is Bluebird, which was in terrible shape. That wasn't even on the radar. We requested it, and it's being done now this year. There were very few of them done last year that were suggested. But anyway, the criteria, and the county bases the criteria on the APASAR, which is a machine, that drives over the road and supposedly electronically tells the condition of the road. That's one determinant, and the other determinant is the age of the room. Well, when we looked over them the last 2 years, we found several that we just did not quite agree with, that they needed it. And this year, I also went myself and looked at it, and in my judgment, and what I base my judgment on is a poor road. Is, you remember Baldwin before it was repaved, because if a road gets too bad, then the whole thing has to be taken up rather than just the surface ground off and then asphalt put back on. Baldwin was my guideline. If anything I thought that would have to be totally pulled up, that would be it. But it wasn't. So that's what I use as my reference point. And looking at the roads this year, I felt, as you say, there was Sandcrest, 20th, 12th, I believe that was it. Anyway, all of them with less than a fair rating. And so we're talking, well, last year it was, I think, I think it was allocated $2 or $3 million for road from the county's perspective. And I think the treasurer and myself made a recommendation that the board agreed with that ended up being about $1 million for roads. So I would like to amend that motion and include only the roads that are rated less than 5. Okay, there's no support, so that dies. I will say that they're about a year behind now from what we've done. And also, we've also used, the residents of Ottawa County passed a road tax. We have no idea what impact that's going to have on funding. It'll be very interesting. There is a meeting this Wednesday. The Road Commission has an annual meeting. I know a group of township supervisors has a lot of questions about the Road Commission for them, particularly relative to the millage that will begin to take effect in December. And that'll be done this Wednesday. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, isn't it true that the revenue that the county gets through this millage, road tax millage, that the total revenue that comes from Georgetown Township will, over the course of that time, come back to the township?
That's the way it's supposed to be structured. We're concerned about what effect is this going to have with the Road Commission on primary roads. You know, one of the questions I think that we all here are interested in is Cottonwood, which is in need, which is due to be done in 2018. Possibly that would be moved up. I also just wanted to comment because I don't have total confidence in the purview of the County Road Commission in looking at our roads and saying, they don't come out. This I don't know when the Pacer was done, the treatment, but they all have a record of the age. What would be a much bigger help, I think, to us to determine it is one of the things that you just said. You know, if the public sees a real bad road, please call us. Please let us know. Also, I've asked the Water and Sewer, DPW, because they're on the roads all the time. Not that it's a job, but that they need to undertake, but if they notice a real bad section of road, please let us know. I got a call from a person this last week and said, well, I take a look at Cottonwood, just north of our road. And I went out, and that's a primary road, and it is bad. It is bad. And I think it was not scheduled to be done until 2020. That isn't going to make it. Or it's going to be just falling apart. So I'm just looking for a better way to grasp hold of what really needs to be done and what doesn't. You know, it's a judgment thing. I look at some of the roads that are scheduled to be done. They're cul-de-sac. They're not totally broken up. They maybe, you know, around the 4 or 5, just barely under fair. But then I think you also got to look, that maybe serves 3 houses. And I think that judgment comes into it also. Anyway, anything else?
Dr. Moore, what do you think about if there's a meeting concerning that 5%, particularly on Cottonwood and Baldwin, would a letter of concern from the board requesting that that project be pushed up do any good? What could we do to support?
I'm going to say something Wednesday night. I'll be going to that meeting, the road commission, Wednesday night.
Okay.
And I will say something there. And if there's no response, then yes, I think as a board, I'm sure they'd be happy if you want to pay for it. Totally, they'll say, go ahead.
Well, with the 5%, we already are.
But I might add, like, 2018, there's a federal grant. That's why it's slated for 2018, but hopefully we can get that moved up.
We participate in primary roads also, right? Not at all? The county is totally responsible for primary?
Right,
100%.
they get federal funding for those projects. The only participation we would do in a road like Cottonwood is the additional right-of-way for sidewalks.
Okay.
We split that cost.
Mr. Chairman, in your review of these streets, and on your report, you added that Cottonwood section, Bauer to Chevelle. Is that that's a primary road, correct? So
I just noted that.
right, that's the section. Yeah, that's the section that really. But that would be the road commission's.
Right. That section is proposed to go to 3 lanes in 2020, and we've
Right.
asked them to do some repairs, and they've agreed to do some short-term repairs because they realize that the condition, it's not going to please residents to have patches through there, but that's the plan. They don't really want to do a major construction now. In 2020, it'll go to 3 lanes.
Anything else?
Just a quick observation. I put a little too much faith in the math on the spreadsheet, and it's not correct. So while I'm comfortable approving the roads that are listed here and adding Mr. Vanderklok's, the number is actually overstated by $146,720. So we should be approving a lesser amount.
I understand what you're saying.
So I will.
We approve the streets. This is just their estimate.
Yeah, these are estimates.
And it's an actual bid that we pay based on the actual bids.
Do those actual bids come back before us?
No, but the actual bids, that's why you approve the streets for the project, then their bid. If their estimate comes more than 5% out of line, then they come back.
Well, they overestimated by 12%.
So they won't be coming back. That's probably, I mean, that might be part of it, but yes, they certainly don't want them to come back, so they estimate higher.
I'm not saying they overestimated on a street basis. I'm just saying the numbers next to the street in the estimate add up to $147,000 less than the total they're showing us. So
Right, they cut more out to get to we told them the target was $1 million that we originally proposed, so they just didn't correct that number.
So we're just approving
The
streets.
streets.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. I'll be a nay. And I would challenge each of you board members, if you get time, to go look at them, and please tell me where I'm wrong. Okay, I just carried Maplewood Park Trail and Rush Creek Trail. Entertain a motion to approve the initiation of the procurement of property related to Maplewood Park Trail and Rush Creek Trail, and authorize the superintendent to obtain appraisals and prepare documents as necessary.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that.
Support.
Questions or comments concerning that?
I think this is something that we discussed at our workshop session, and just the concept of trails in those 2 areas, and we've talked about these for a long time, and that Maplewood Park Trail, obviously, we're concerned because we're applying for a grant, and it would be incumbent upon us to have that property as part of to be able to say when the grant is submitted that that's part of it. So I think I'm in favor of this.
I think maybe for a point of clarification, we should, with some of these parcels, these are much larger parcels than the requirements for the trail. So just to clarify that we're only talking about the land that would be necessary to run a trail down. So trail space and a little bit on either side of that trail. This is not acquiring entire parcels of
Correct.
land.
It would be, on Rush Creek, it would be the area of the current easement for the drain, just to add to the drain easement, the trail. And then for Maplewood Park, it's 30 feet for the first parcel and then 50 feet along the larger parcel. And then the next parcel down, because of the way the creek goes through, it's a little bit kind of at a triangle, and then another 50 feet going all the way down to Baldwin. So.
Anything further? The motion on the table is to approve the initiation of that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And it's carried. Next is to approve preparing the resolution and scheduling a public hearing to require sidewalks on the south side of 44th from 8th Avenue West to connect to the existing path at Glen Eagle.
I'll make that motion to get it on the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Moved and supported. Okay, we're open for discussion or comment.
I'll just share that I was originally in favor of granting this waiver, so I voted in favor of granting the waiver at the last meeting, which would allow the current condition, meaning no sidewalk. So I'm not changed from that position, and I disagree with this action tonight from the standpoint of we previously gave the developer directions that we granted the waiver and told him no sidewalk, and here we come not a month later saying, oops, we changed our mind, we do want a sidewalk. And I'm concerned what decisions he may have made in the past month based on that previous direction, and we're really, we're trying to unring the bell here. So I don't think it's good precedent. I don't think it sends a good message to our business community and those that would choose to develop our land. So I'm still opposed to this. I understand the concern of wanting to grant the folks at Glen Eagle access via a walk. I also understand the developer said as he develops more of the property, he has every intention of doing that. So that's my 2 cents.
And
Excuse me, this would not be a final action to reverse what we said. This is to establish a public hearing. Am I correct? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I also voted the same way that Chad did when this came to us. And I really was the person who brought it back for us to consider. I think what Chad says makes a lot of sense, and what he usually says does make a lot of sense. And so I would not, I'm not going to, go to the wall for this. I think if the rest of the board is in favor, that'd be great. If not, I can live with that.
Mr. Chair, I feel as Chad does, we passed a waiver, and I just don't feel right in withdrawing that.
Anyone else?
Because I think, just to be clear again, and you asked the question, Mr. Chairman, this would only be to approve a resolution to schedule a public hearing. It's not to grant, it's not saying you have to put this sidewalk in. It's just simply to have a public hearing, and the developer and others who want to speak for or against it could come at that point and speak.
Right. Will establish the resolution and then the public hearing on the resolution.
Right.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I had voted for the sidewalk, and I do agree with Chad as far as the precedent, and there is a concern of the message we're sending to developers. However, I believe that area is just incredibly dangerous. And you have a section there from the condos. I walk that regularly in the winter. and they're taking their lives in their own hands if they walk through that area. It has not been developed for decades. So I have mixed emotions as far as the fact that they've been denied, but as far as safety for the public, I believe a sidewalk should be there.
Anyone else? I would like to at least establish a public hearing and hear the yeses and nos, why it should or shouldn't be done, and the pros and the cons, and then do the consideration of whether I'm on board with it or not. Anything else on the motion, which is to approve the initiation of the procurement, the resolution and scheduling a public hearing? I think it'd be best, would you call the roll, please, Mr. Clerk?
Yes. Mr. Schwam.
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle.
No.
Clerk votes yes. Dr. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Skolma.
No.
Mr. Valerius.
Yes.
Was 4 yes?
Yes.
Motion carries. The Rosewood Park Project, entertain a motion to approve the bid from Apex Contractors, Inc., and to add a splash pad to the project.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Questions or comments?
It's just a question. This may not go anywhere, but I guess my concern is I would like to consider them as two separate issues because I feel differently on the two separate issues based on the estimates and budgets that were previously established in the Parks Plan. I am in favor of the Rosewood Parks improvement as we had originally submitted, and which did not include the splash pad. So I am in favor of that portion of the project. I am not in favor of the splash pad at this time.
You're torn.
I'm a no vote at the moment on the motion as stated.
Anyone else?
This will be a great asset for the community. Those that live in that area have no access to water, so they're entitled and deserve to have some water activities. And the cost of this in the big picture is very small.
I don't disagree with what you just said, but I think as we laid out our 5-year park plan and laid out the costs associated with that, this will cause us to make sacrifices elsewhere in this plan, or it should cause us to make sacrifices elsewhere in the plan based on we're going to overspend this, which is our first project. Our 5-year park plan had it at a cost of $875,000, so I don't think it's good to start out your plan by overspending on the very first project, which very well may mean that you're sacrificing on things later in the plan that we collectively agreed with the community, and the development of the plan was important to the community. So I get it. I can appreciate where you're coming from. I think I just wanted to be clear that we are overspending this project if we include the splash pad.
I agree with you. It's exactly what I think we did with roads. We overspent $1 million on roads.
Mr. Chairman,
That's the difference.
I felt the same way that Chad did previously, because the splash pad, as you remember, in the original proposal that came to us, there were several elements in those improvements. The splash pad was one. There were several others that we eliminated. However, after looking at that, after the fact that we approved the improvements that we did, it just seemed to me that in looking at in the park plan and the estimate breakdown, there was the splash pad was included. It just seemed to me that it makes good sense for that neighborhood and the families that live in that community to have access to that. Plus, I believe all of these improvements are going to contribute to increased property values for the neighbors that live, the folks that live there. And I know that this is going to get a lot of use. And yes, it is more than what the estimate showed in the park plan. There's no question about that. However, I think it's a good investment long-term. And I'm looking, when I say long-term, number of years. So that's where I'm coming from in my support of this.
Anyone else?
I agree with Rich, and I think that was well worded. I think it would be excellent for that community, and it would be positive, especially for young couples, drawing them into our area. I support it.
Anyone else? The splash pad is not going to be as grandiose as the one at Maplewood, but I think that's going to be a very, very pivotal park in the future. Okay, if there's nothing else, all in favor of the motion to approve the bid from Apex, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
One nay from Chad. And 15th for discussion is the offer that we had at the, and we discussed a little bit at the workshop for the buy-sell option for 200 Chicago Drive.
Just a question on the discussion. Are we having the discussion in public, or are we going to close session to discuss?
Well, this is concerning it's buy-sell, but it's concerning, if it's sell, that you cannot go into closed session. We only can if we're buying. Is that correct?
Okay. Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
And right now, we're not buying anything. Okay.
Is this discussion?
Yes, this is discuss buy-sell option for 200 Chicago Drive.
I was impressed by Mr. Nelson and his presentation. I was not for selling the property for the numbers he was talking about. But as he laid out his plan and we had a chance to see what his history is and the successful projects that he had, it was very, very impressive. And when he started talking brick and mortar buildings and the fact that he's won awards for landscaping, has a very, very strong reputation. His family was involved, relatives in the construction of Woodland Mall. I was very impressed. I think this could be a positive step for us. If we don't go this route, I think we have to look at the alternative, what we're going to do with that site, how that site needs to be prepared right now. It certainly can't sit the way it is right now. But I think this could bring jobs to our area. And his professionalism, I'll just say, was very, very impressive. And it swung me around. So I would, personally, I would be in favor of this, and even recommending that Dan have an opportunity to negotiate with him on our behalf. That's where I stand right now.
Well, I think we have empowered Dan to negotiate, and we did negotiate. We made an offer, and then there was no counter other than you should take my offer. That was, as I understood it, that was the only counter.
But now that we have an estimate of the property's value, which seems to be somewhat reasonable with the offer that he's made, to have Dan represent us and take that offer, or whatever discussion you want to on that behalf, I think would be positive.
It certainly wouldn't harm anything for, but I imagine, Mr. Nelson, did he get a copy also of the appraisal?
I have not provided him a copy.
Oh.
I wanted to wait for the board's direction here first, but he can certainly request one.
Yeah, or I don't see anything wrong with at least letting him know, because, yeah, it's a public document, letting him know that at least this board member is torn, and at least I would like them to have that information, and I'll bet you a cup of coffee it's going to come back.
Mr. Chairman, not being that knowledgeable about some of these things. I guess I'm asking for a bit of clarification. We did get the appraisal for the property back. That number compared with the offer that was made, there's a difference. Do we counter Mr. Nelson's current offer, or do we, I guess I'm just asking what steps do we take? I mean, we could talk about this for a long time, but I need some clarity, I guess, in my own mind about what are the right steps to take.
You know, I'll share my opinion and then I'll lean on Ron's wisdom because he's got more experience with real estate deals. But my inclination would be to provide Mr. Nelson a copy of the appraisal and say, based on the appraisal, we're not inclined to accept your current offer, but we would entertain a future offer from you, and leave it at that.
Well, that's pretty clear and simple.
That's exactly kind of, not quite in that sense, but where I was saying from. We put a price, or he offered a price. We said what we wanted, expected from it, was not. He offered a price. We said that's not acceptable, and we wondered if we'd get a counter. So I think we all agreed that the ball was still in his court, and that's why some of us said, you know, well, why is he coming here to talk to us? Because the ball was in his court. And so I go along with Mr. Tuttle, you know, make him aware of more information, and I still think the ball is in his court.
Well, I appreciate, Chad, what you said, because that makes a lot of sense to me. That's the direction that I would go in.
I don't know, you've appreciated me a lot tonight, but you haven't agreed with me on stuff.
Well, I can still appreciate you. I don't have to agree with you all the time.
Right.
I'm going to disagree with some of you. This transaction's been going on way too long. You know, it's relatively a simple transaction of selling a piece of land, and we're still negotiating 3 months later how to handle the transaction. My suggestion would be quite simple, would be to set up a meeting with Dan. I would include myself if that's an option that you want to use. We would meet him. At that time, we'd give him a copy of the appraisal and probably split the difference. Because I'm going to go back to what John's just talked about. This is an asset for this community to get Mr. Nelson to build a beautiful 2 buildings landscape, much the idea that we had for that property to begin with. And it's time to sign the dotted line. It's time to move forward and get this closed. Because we cannot afford to lose him. We want to maintain and be in control of the situation. And that means negotiate belly to belly. Let's make a sale. And hopefully it's somewhere between where he offered and the appraised value. And what are we talking about? $60,000 in the big picture is peanuts compared to what he's going to build and spend and the benefit of the community. And if I had the opportunity, I don't know if I've read this whole report and I found it very interesting. One, not a whole lot of comps in Georgetown Township. Why? There's no sales happening. And then the appraisal report talks about the slow market activity in Georgetown community. Talked about the vacant buildings, talked about the mall that we have in our new competition, the outlet mall. There's a lot of things that we have to compete with. And now, in my opinion, we got Mr. Nelson who's going to build 2 beautiful buildings, indoor park, community activities. Let's go.
Ron, I lean towards what Chad had said, and I would approach them with the appraised value.
How long should, you said these transactions taking too long. How long should a transaction take?
Days.
Don't you usually,
Days.
as realtors, don't you take 6 months?
Well, let's think about it. If we had the appraisal before we put the home or the property up for sale, we could have made a decision 3 months ago.
Well, we didn't, so that's off the record.
But you didn't have the value. You now have the value. You're now in a position to make a decision.
You know, I also have a concern. I don't know for sure, but you mentioned it. I'm very, very concerned about, as I think has been mentioned, what his plan is to put in there. I'm a little frightened by it. That whether that's a sustainable use of that property, or whether that in 5 or 10 years, I got another Kmart on my hands. Very concerned about that.
That should be something that you should not be concerned. Our job is to bring new businesses to the community, and what happens in the future may or may not happen. Radio Shack, who's been in business for years, is in the process of filing bankruptcy. That's just the nature of business, and we need to move forward. It brings tax dollars to the community. I'm excited about using trampolines if that's the route that he tends to go, and it will be good for Georgetown Township.
I agree temporarily, it certainly would be. Any other further discussion?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering, where are we with this? Are we going to take Chad's advice and move in that direction? Or it seems to me, to get at Ron's point, that we've talked about this, but it'd be nice to take a next step.
Well, Chad is good, and we're halfway to Ron's point in that I think Ron said, yeah, he should know what the appraisal was, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there any board member that doesn't feel that you'd want to share that information with Mr. Nelson, at least the appraisal, and then see what he does?
But we need to come back with a counter proposal at this point. He's entitled to a number, whether that be market value or half or whatever, or have Dan meet him and negotiate between the two of them. But don't make it a 30-day transaction for someone to make a decision.
Let me clarify so that initially, give me the history of this property. It's up for sale. It's with a realtor. Did we have an asking price, or was just this an offer?
Well, we do have an asking price, but then he made an offer far below our asking price. So this is his third offer, so we turned down his first offer because of the issues faced.
And we did not counter?
He didn't counter. We turned it down. He came back with a new offer for the entire parcel at a different price. And so this is a different offer that we haven't responded to. So we need to respond to his offer, either reject, accept, or counter are really the three choices. And if we reject and ask him for an appraisal, or we can counter and say, come at the appraisal, or anywhere in between, or we can attempt to negotiate that ourselves and then bring it back to the board if you're looking for some number in that area. But realizing Mr. Nelson knows the number, if he, is doing any research at all, he'll have the information shortly, whether we provide it or not. We might as well give it to him.
So is that acceptable? We get him the information and then just see where it goes? Or do you want to attach figures to it?
I'm just thinking out loud here, but certainly provide him the appraisal. Because we've obtained the appraisal and we have the number, I think we're going to be hard pressed to extract more than the appraisal at this point. So I'd counter at the appraised price, the market price.
Yeah, I don't think we can we can go that far as an action. That we would have to take a motion to authorize him. I mean, it's a public document, so that's no big deal to give him a public document. But if we're going to start, I think, putting dollars that we will accept, that would take a formal motion.
Chad, how do you feel about going with the appraised with a hard number and making that an offer? And this is what we would sell it for. I would incline to be firm with that. I'd like to talk more and listen more, but I'd be inclined to be firm with that. That's the appraised value.
thinking, what you're always curious about is if this is the price and this is the price that's out there, are other parties interested in it at that price? In such a way that somebody, if there's 2 or 3 or 4 people interested at that price, would one of them be willing to pay more than that price? And that's what I don't.
We have provided the information both on the Township Facebook page, and there was an MLive online story, I didn't see it in print, about the offer that was under consideration. So it has been out there. We haven't received any inquiries from those 2 stories. It doesn't mean there won't be another one out there, but the information is out of what's being considered today.
I guess my response would be more to provide him the appraisal and let him know that the township board's not inclined to accept less than appraised value, and ask him if he wants to submit an offer at that point. That's my personal opinion.
I would go with that.
I would suggest that you go back with a counter offer of $825.
So that we can't do.
Why can you
Well,
not?
we can't, but without a formal motion. And then we have to determine whether this has to be added to the agenda, whether this is an emergency. This is our first vendor and only vendor so far, I realize, but I don't know where the hurry is for this.
You've been negotiating for 3 months.
Yep,
That's why you're in a hurry.
yep. I've negotiated things for over a year, contracts.
The benefit of the $825, it gives him a little piece of the cake of $15,000 less market value. It shows a good faith on our part that we were interested in selling the property, that we want him to put his business in Georgetown Township.
And I'm not sure of that myself.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with what Chad suggested. And I know this is our discussion point. I don't want to make a motion either, but I think by consensus it'd be nice to know if the majority of us agree with what Chad suggested, and then that would be the direction at this point that we would give to the superintendent, would it not?
That's as far as I'm willing to go, is to make that public document available to him. I am still not in a hurry. You know, I was the original, when we negotiated the purchase of this piece of property for a long time, I was opposed to buying it for what we did until the plan came up that we thought was just a beautiful plan for a usage of that, for a public usage of that. And I had such dreams of that, and a market there, a band shell, a gathering place that just, right or wrong, I was captivated by that. That's what swung me to say, okay, I will buy it for that, because I thought I could see a good use for that. But the public didn't agree, and that's where it is. If I'd known what I know now, I would have voted no. We don't want to buy it for $3 million. But with the plan that was in place, that threw me in support of it. So I would go just, let's say, make it myself information available to him.
I support Chad's recommendation.
I support
too.
Chad's recommendation, too.
Okay, just go with that direction then, and then we'll revisit it. Anything else on that item? Okay, we're ready for the second public comment period. Again, feel free. Now you got some things to talk about.
Michael Bosch, 896 Fairwood Court. Yeah, I got some stuff to talk about. First of all, I forgot about the consent agenda about the tax abatement in the industrial zone. I highly discourage that kind of stuff. We're not known for being an industrial attracting township for industrial businesses. So we're going to let him not pay any taxes. So, I mean, it seems like a great idea, but it seems like we're really good at losing money and losing tax revenue. I think we should put a Band-Aid on this thing before we bleed to death. So I say, It's not fair to other businesses that are paying taxes, real taxes. Michigan did away with personal property tax, so he's not paying that, and the other businesses are. But when it comes to the real property tax, that's money. Let's not give up anymore. Unlike Kmart and 200 Baldwin and a lot of other places. And then can we please stop spending until we've liquidated some of our investments? Let's just agree to not spend another penny until we sell 200 Baldwin, 200 Chicago Drive. I keep thinking back to those campaign videos, you know, fiscally conservative. I don't know what the problem is. We need a board that makes spending decisions based on what's efficient and with accountability in mind. It seems like the decisions we make are always based on aesthetics and accolades, and I think that's how we get into the trouble we're in. As far as the 200 Chicago Drive property, no comps for the appraisal. I would call O'Reilly's a comp. That's 0.6 acres for 500,000. 500,000 for 0.68 acres, or 740,000 for 12 acres. I don't know. Which one's a better location? It's commercial property. It takes a long time to sell. Ron, you should know that. The average commercial property sits on the market for 3 years. What's the rush? So we sell it. He makes an offer for 33% of what we have into it. 740,000. We got that's a $1.6 million loss. That's my tax money. A loss. Just, I mean, that's Lansing level boondoggle, not township. Residential streets coming in 100,000 under. Rosewood Park with a splash pad, 100,000 over. What's a few $100,000 between politicians? Well, that's one thing. 1.6 million? That's a whole nother thing. Just something to think about. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, John Cade. I think I'm still at 7869 Parkside Court. A couple of comments. One is the appraisal. Is that available for the public? And where, I realize this is a public comment section, but is that something that I can come to the office, or is it going to be online? Or?
We'll put it with the minutes.
Thank you. My other public comment is actually on the public comments. You asked for our name and address, but all it ever says in the minutes is there were public comments. Now, I realize maybe we can't record everything and put in the minutes everything, but could it at least say the person, you know, John Cade made a public comment about, like under the first section, I made a public comment about the LED sign. Could something very short just be put in the minutes like that? Or if several people make a similar type comment, say that John Cade and somebody else made a comment about the sign. The last thing is, and I realize there will be a public hearing about this, but it's more the thought process with the sidewalk at 8th Avenue and 44th. I agree with what Chad said, that a month or so ago, you said to the developer one thing, and now there's maybe the possibility that you're going to say something else. I think the board, before they vote on something, should really think it through, and maybe should not have voted that night if there were, should have waited a couple of weeks where they could have thought this process out more. That's more of a general type comment. If the board sometimes just waited a week or had thought about it in a work session you have by yourselves before you do vote on something. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Jacqueline Larkin, 8294 Cottonwood Drive. These comments are off the hip, so I have no copy to give to Manette. I just wanted to comment on your discussion that you're having about what to do with the offer and the buying or selling of 200 Chicago Drive. You have enlisted Colliers. You're paying Colliers to help you with this, and I don't understand why you're all sitting here kind of not sure what to do when you have a professional that you're already paying to help advise you on what you should do at this point. and what would be your best bet to do at this point. I don't understand why you don't have Colliers, why you don't have your subject matter expert here advising you today. And I hope you do advise with them and go with what they have to say. That is your expert. Thank you.
Edward Sosa, 7927 Kinmont Court. I agree with Jackie, but even more so, I'm kind of appalled that you have an expert realtor on the board. It sounds like he had recommended beforehand that you get an appraisal for these properties. I don't really believe that you personally would go and look at a home or a property for yourself personally without getting an appraisal to begin with. So shame on you for not doing that. It just makes common sense that you should have done that from the beginning. I think you should go ahead with that proposal. I was impressed with his presentation. I think some of you are hesitant about that. I don't know if you have personal interest in what you think should be there, but yeah, I get really frustrated. I know a lot of other people do too, when you take too long to make a decision. I say baloney on waiting 3 more years to make a decision what's going to happen with that property. You don't have anybody else who has offered you an option for that property, so you've got something on the table. I think you should go with it. It's going to be tax revenue for the township, and if you just let it sit there, we're just going to begin losing money there. So I would support the proposal of the developer.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the public comment period and go to board discussion and general information.
Dr. Moore, a few weeks ago, Reverend Vanderklok had talked about the library and getting that up on the radar and what needs to be done. It seems like the senior center is going quite well. Dan's been having meetings with the seniors, and that's taking shape. We gave him a framework of approximately how many square feet, how much per square foot, and I look forward to seeing what the results are going to be. But I'd like to say, as Rich had mentioned, I'd like to again plant the seed that we should be looking closer at the library, and I'd like to see us in the near future use the same type of technique. Have Dan assess with the individuals that are there what needs to be done to the library, and come up with a dollar figure, number of square feet, and see what we can do to make that a reality. We have enough in our budget. I believe that's possible. And I'm throwing that out there, and I support Rich's idea. I think it's the direction we should be going, and I'd like to see us do it sooner rather than later, as soon as it would be practical. Also, for our workshop coming up, if it'd be possible to put on the workshop agenda a discussion of a possible newsletter, whether that would be electronic or a combination. I'd like to see us go in that direction also. So if our next meeting that could be a possibility, I'd like to see us do that.
Mr. Settle?
I'm certainly supportive of us engaging the public wherever it's appropriate. I think the workshops have been an effective way, and I think I'm certainly supportive of the comments earlier of engaging the public in that dialogue as well, or at least dedicating a portion of that time just to be open dialogue, whether it's going to be in a workshop or a town hall or separately. So I don't know if you want to collect other comments. I do have a couple other comments.
Yeah, no, go ahead. We'll give you another chance afterwards, but go ahead and spill your guts now.
Yeah.
All right, I just, for some reason tonight, I just feel compelled to respond to Mr. Bosch. I always appreciate his comments. He's always got a diverse amount of comments and stuff, but I do want to remind him and the others that, if we just listen to your comments of the sky is falling and spending, we would walk out of this room fearful of what does our future hold. And I think it's important every now and then just to hit the reset button and recognize that, in this community, we enjoy the lowest property tax rate of any any neighboring community, anybody around us. One of the lowest property tax rates in Michigan. We're very fortunate from that perspective. Everything we have spent money on, as long as I have been on this board, which is just over 6 years now, has been paid for out of cash. We do not have debt. We are not, we're not in the position to require the issuance of debt. The community spoke very clearly how they felt about debt in this last bond issue. We know the community doesn't like debt. Everything's been financed out of cash. We have amazing parks that have been invested in. We keep invested in our roads. Our fire department has current equipment. We all enjoy lower homeowner insurance rates. We don't frequently recognize that, but we enjoy those lower rates because of the quality of our fire department and the apparatus they have available. So we enjoy lower homeowner insurance rates. That's a good thing, and yet our financial position continues to even strengthen year over year. Now, I know your response to that will be, well, then give it back to me and lower our taxes. And truly, that may be an option that this board considers in the future. I just want to point out, we already enjoy the lowest tax rates around. We get some amazing parks. We have some amazing services available, and we still have money to continue to be invested in the roads and the parks in this community. So it's not this dire sky is falling situation, but I do appreciate the position you come from. I've told you before, I don't know anybody more conservative than you that would try and spend a penny less than you would spend on anything. So always appreciate your comments.
Mr. Clerk?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I would just agree with Chad, what you said, Chad.
I agree with Chad, and if you don't mind, Dan, I think I have the numbers, but I'd rather have you give accurate numbers. What is our approximate reserves and what's our approximate value in real estate? Ballpark?
The real estate's for sale, you mean? Or?
Yes, real estate for sale.
Well, we have 3 parcels for sale. The Chicago Drive parcel, Palin's 200 Baldwin, also the parcel by the Ice Center. I mean, we don't have appraisals for the other 2 parcels, so it's hard to judge what exactly they're worth. Our fund balance, I just reported that at the last meeting, so I can get that back out for you if you want, but it's over $6 million, so I don't know how detailed you want, but it's significant.
Fine. So we have $6 million in the reserve account. I can assure you, I occasionally get to look at other cities or townships' budgets. Most are struggling. They're lucky to have $1 million in the reserve account, and we're going to be careful as we spend money because we want to maintain a high budget. We also want to improve the community where we can. One thing I just want to remind the board that I've been kind of emailing you occasionally on Streetscape, reviewing other communities like Standale, Granville, Zeeland, and then showing you some of the photos that we have in Georgetown Township. I'm not saying that we'll make a decision tonight, but we need to have a discussion within the next month in order, if this is something that you would consider, so that they can get the work orders out and the estimates. So just a reminder on that. What you don't know, John, good news for you, is that I have started to put a newsletter together as far as the marketing and the cost of all that. Okay. So that will be available for the next workshop. And a suggestion that I have is, for now on, when someone comes in and pays a tax bill, we ask for their email address. When they pay a water bill, ask for their email address. When they go to the library, ask for an email address. In exchange, we would send electronically the newsletter so that we can reduce our cost. But those are some things that we can start doing to getting the message out. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Just a couple comments. One, in regard to the sign and the visibility heading west, I agree. There's bushes there that the lady who commented about. There's bushes there. I think that will have to be removed in order that we can visualize that sign. I notice Mr. Sosa was left, but probably Mike can answer this because he made some reference to a website for the love of Georgetown. Is that available to the public?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay, thank you. Also, someone questioned about a town hall. Maybe you missed the last meeting. I said there would be a decision on the town hall by June, and that was a promise of mine. The question of why, names and addresses and not the content. We require the names and addresses only because if you're not from this area, if you're from Maryland, because anyone has the right to publicly speak at a public meeting. This enables and helps us a little bit of credibility. You, the citizens, you're credible. This affects you. If it's someone from Grand Haven or whatever, we have to take that with a little understanding and grain. It doesn't quite have the impact. In regard to the Colliers being professionals, yes, they are, but their main objective is we hired them and to advise them, but the realtor's objective is to make a sale. That's how they make their living, and is to try to get the parties together and come up with a reasonable price and make a sale. And the last thing I'd just like to say that kind of dovetails into what Ron was saying a little bit. I've been here on this board for 10 years, 4 years as a trustee. It was a totally different board. Some of you probably feel that was better than this. But that board, historically, this community in its growing pains has been sort of a reactive community. They reacted to things and then fixed them, and that's fine. And consequently, because of that form of governance, that board amassed pretty good amounts of fund balance. That's why they were able to pay cash for the ice arena. Right or wrong, this board certainly doesn't react to things, hopefully, but also is more of a proactive. The board here, I feel, is committed to the future of Georgetown Township. Now, as was evidenced by the failure of that millage, that was a future thing. Evidently, the voters that were out didn't agree with that, so we have to pull back a little bit. But it's long-term future that this board. And if you're reactive, it doesn't cost much money. If you're going to be proactive and try to provide updated parks and facilities for seniors, facilities for library, greater facilities, it's going to require an investment. Thank you very much for coming. Anyone else have any other comments?
I have one more thing. So it's not a misunderstanding. The sale of the Kmart building where we got the offer, we still own two other buildings, KFC and the what's the shoe place? Payless. And hopefully one sale with KFC was around, was it 520? No, but they included something.
So closer to 500, but yes.
We'll just say 500 with KFC, and then the sale of the shoe place. So you're going to find that you got close to $1 million there, plus if the sale comes together with Mr. Nelson.
Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.